Hey students, and welcome to the first part of the Dragon Workshop. So let's get to it. I'm going to show you guys how to make this base mesh so you can eventually make this. Obviously your dragon doesn't have to be as disgusting and oozy, but that's how I like this one to be. This is like my underworld death dragon. And yeah, I actually created this from that initial base mesh I showed you. I created that base mesh last year for my Townsfolk collection, maybe 2 years ago. And even though it has a lot of flaws and problems, it's so nice to have a starting point. I'm not going to show you guys how to make the wings because I have a whole sculpt with me on that, and honestly, it's pretty much the exact same process. So I'm going to delete the wings really quick. To do this, I'm just holding Control-Shift in case you're wondering. So yeah, got rid of those. All right, so how do you make this? As of right now, it is one subtool, but really it isn't. If I do Shift-F, you'll see there's multiple pieces here. I like having the body and the tail separate usually, but I made this a long time ago, and at that point I didn't have that preference. But the rest of it's pretty spot on. I like having the feet separate and the head, and the neck most importantly. So what I can do is, I can very quickly, right now I'm doing Control-Shift-Tap, select things, and then I can adjust the proportions really quickly. So I want like a bigger neck, just like that. I thought honestly it almost already looks better. Just some general tips here. I really recommend having a reference. There's lots of different dragons and shapes and sizes. You probably have an image in your head already that you don't even realize, because there's really a lot of different styles. The only rule of thumb you really should consider is the head size. The larger the head, the younger or more baby your dragon's going to look. So if you want a big, tough dragon, tiny head, tiny eyes. Trust me, that works every time. Okay, let's get started. How did I make this? Spheres, appending spheres and moving them around. So let's do that. Subtool, append, sphere. I love using spheres. I use them for everything. W for 3D gizmo, clicking X to make sure symmetry is enabled, and then grabbing that little square and just rolling down. Now I have this base mesh already, so I can kind of cheat, but I don't. I want to simulate what it was like when I made this the first time. So I'm going to hide it for right now, and the first piece I'm going to make is the torso. So I have my move brush. You can select your move brush by B for brush palette and move. And we'll start moving stuff around. I know it kind of tapers up. You can make this shape however you like. This is where you already are making design decisions at this point. But here we go. We kind of have this little tube shape. Lines up roughly. I am going to cheat kind of, just make sure this looks similar to this current base mesh, which honestly does have goofy proportions, but it's a great starting point. All right. Round that out a little bit. And then I'm holding Shift to smooth it out every now and then. Let's make a leg. I'm gonna grab append for a sphere, W for 3D gizmo, and then I'm clicking and dragging to move this around. This will not be in symmetry and will mirror and weld at the end. I like to create the arm in multiple pieces based on the muscle groups. So this is kind of like the deltoid, tricep, bicep, and then we'll have the elbow. I'm going to create this shape again very quickly. What I'm going to do is hold Control and then drag. And notice how this is masked. This is really nice because what I can do is go to Split, Mask Points of my subtools, or I can just do Control Drag and keep it a subtool. So if you don't know what that meant, let me reiterate really quickly. If I hold Control and drag right now, it clears the mask. So it's one subtool. See? One piece. And if I do Shift F, you'll see they're two different... Wow, it's the same color. Okay. Let me go to Auto Groups. There we go. They're supposed to be different colors, but there we go. ZBrush is being cute and picking the closest colors possible. Anyway, they're different pieces, I'm trying to say. So what's cool is I can, at any point, separate these very easily if I wanted to. If I Dynamesh or Z-Remesh this will no longer be true. They become the same mesh. But for now, it's kind of like a automatic folder you could think of. But if you don't want to have that, you want it really, really clear, you can make them separate subtools. I like to keep my subtools kind of buttoned up and in polygroups instead. All right, got two pieces right there. And then for the foot, I will append a cube because that is a closer shape, really. It's probably the only thing I'll use a cube for. I hate doing feet, so I usually will have little cube feet for my monsters for an impossibly long time until it's the absolute last thing I have to do. All right, these proportions look a little weird, so let's kind of move them around. That looks a little bit better. And I can check back with what I have right now. Yeah, that's pretty close. I'm going to merge these all down together, the foot, and so the whole leg is its own piece. And I can resize it really quickly to match my base mesh. I also like keeping them merged but different polygroups because I can move the entire leg together really quickly, which is always nice. Alright, in order to make it 2 legs, I will go to Geometry, Modify Topology, Mirror, and Weld. And then X for symmetry, and I can do some further adjustments again. Something that makes them look like stronger is kind of giving like a bulldog pose, so not pointed out, but kind of feet pointed in almost, and then like broad. I notice it makes them look more tough. Now let's make the back legs. The back legs are very different, but you can just duplicate the front legs and scoot them backwards and adjust them because it's still the same number of pieces. So I can do Control Shift to isolate this one group, Control Tap to mask it, Control Shift again to show everything, and then one last Control Tap to have this one piece isolated and masked. And then now I can adjust just that one piece. So that was a lot of clicking and steps. You don't have to do it that way. I'm just used to doing it that way. You can also just have your 3D gizmo open, and I think it's Control Shift on the piece, and it automatically masks that one piece, which is really nice. For some reason, I don't do that. I do the lots of ridiculous clicking method, but it is smarter to have the gizmo open and just Control Shift on the polygroup you want, and it automatically masks and selects it. Very cool. And now let's get the tail. So for the tail, I like to use Curve 2, and then I modify it by going to Stroke, Curve Modifiers, and then this is actually, I've already done it. I think what it normally looks like is this. So highlight size, and then click FH. And I kind of have just like a small taper, not all the way, but just a little bit like that. And then what it does is when you draw it out, it automatically tapers the tube for you, which is really nice. So let's draw a line out. That's a little too skinny, so I will increase my draw size. I'm holding spacebar to get this menu up, by the way. And then tap on this. Too big, so I'll decrease my draw size, tap again. That's pretty good. I'll get a split mask point, so the tail is its own piece. Grab the move brush, and just kind of move things around. I'm using 3D gizmo, move brush, kind of just quickly getting everything where I want it to be. Increasing the size again. I like long tails as well. There we go, looking good. So the last thing really is the neck and the head. I can actually use my Curve 2 brush for that as well, because it should be tapered. Might be easier to use a sphere. As you probably imagine, there's lots of different ways to get the job done. So I'll just use this little shape I created and then kind of massage it with the move brush to get my neck piece. So the neck height is really going to be a big determining factor of what your dragon looks like. So really keep that in mind. It's a very sensitive proportion piece. And there we go. And then another thing that I think is really helpful is creating the head in 2 different pieces. You're tempted to do this, then maybe like do a snout or something. But then if you want to like open up the mouth and show all the teeth, it can be kind of difficult to readily change it. So I make this kind of like flat pancake shape. Kind of put a bump on top. Like that. Oh, I don't have symmetry turned on. Let me mirror and weld. There we go. Now it's symmetrical again. All right, and then I'll do duplicate. Take this piece and I will spin it around. Just rotating at 180 degrees. I'm holding shift while I rotate to make sure it clicks to exactly 180. And then I'll put this bottom piece on the jaw. And then this will let me, whenever I want, I can like open the mouth and show all the teeth. I'm gonna merge these 2 pieces down together. And the reason I'm doing that is because they're still separate polygroups, so I can separate them whenever I want, but with them merged, it's a little easier to move things around. Do a couple more adjustments, but that's pretty much the general idea. And then I can use that curved tube again to make some quick horns. There we go. I'm a big fan of holding control on 3D Gizmo and dragging out to quickly duplicate. It doesn't make a new subtool, it's just a different polygroup within your subtool. There we go, kind of got a quick base mesh. I can already tell the head is too big. It's making it look smaller. So now, the proportion should look a little bigger right away. Neck is also probably too thick, but don't be too critical with your base mesh. Like, you can do a lot of heavy lifting here, but if you look at all of these shapes up close, you might get too caught up in details and you don't want to. So just like zoom out, way out, and kind of look at it from a distance. Like kind of like, oh yeah, looks dragonish, especially with wings, this would look like a dragon. Okay, so that's the base mesh. Where a lot of people get screwed up is when they try to go from this step to like the muscles and stuff. And really, there isn't a secret trick to it. You just need to look at a reference and know where muscle groups are. Honestly, a lot of this is made up. I have some of it that has truth in it. Like this neck muscle right here, you have those on your own neck right now. I don't remember what they're called, but that's a real thing. Pectoral muscles, deltoids, tricep, bicep. But for the most part, especially back here, I'm kind of just like, roughly doing it. I like to use horse muscle anatomy to get a lot of this blocked out, and I also use lions as well. I found those work really nicely to piece together a dragon. But when I'm actually creating it, what I like to do is I divide a few times to smooth out the mesh, and then I dynamesh. Because if you dynamesh at a high resolution when it's low poly like that, it keeps all those lines. Like, see these? Like these lines. Kind of hard to explain. See how those lines there? And now there's not. It's all smooth. That's what I mean. So if you divide, then dynamesh, it won't preserve those lines. Otherwise, it kind of does because it thinks they're details. If you dynamesh at a low enough resolution, it doesn't happen, but it's an easy pitfall to fall into if you're a beginner. I like using clay buildup and standard in order to get muscles. And I'll kind of just rough it out. I'm like, okay, I know there's a couple of muscles right there. Probably some in the back. I like adding divide a few times, then dynamesh at a low resolution. Dynamesh is located under geometry dynamesh right here. Adjust the resolution right here. There is no specific number. It depends on the size of your object within ZBrush. So I can't tell you like a resolution of 136 is perfect. It just depends on your current setup. There'll be pectoral muscles. And then dam standards are a great one to break up your muscle groups. And really just kind of be loose with it and have fun. You're kind of just getting like bony landmarks. So there'll be like a shoulder blade right here. I know that. Also a hip bone. I like having skinny dragons, so there's usually ribs are really dramatic. There's gonna be a spine bone as well, so that probably should connect better. Grab a move brush. You can kind of see how it starts to come together. But notice how I'm not being too specific. I'm really just being pretty loose with it and putting some blobs in here and there. If you try to get too perfect with everything being exactly accurate, you kind of can suck the fun out of it, depending. Just have fun. Be loose with it. Don't overthink it. Especially because what's going to happen when you pose is you're going to exaggerate certain muscle groups anyway, and some of them are going to stretch as the dragon moves. Let me zoom in on the head really quick here. So for the head, my main tips are make the eyes smaller than you expect. The eye hole will be pretty big. But the actual eye, once you like adjust this, it's going to be pretty low. I like to make a big bump above the eye like this. I'm using the move brush with Alt in order to do this. And I also define like these little eye bags underneath it. And that is really, really helpful in getting the tired, angry dragon look that I like. I'll also use the pinch brush a lot on the eyes and just the head shape in general to get a nicer shape. This has like a big bill right here. It should be skinnier and then wider. Using clay buildup with Alt to get some nostrils. And then move with the Alt brush again to kind of build up a little snout. And already that's looking a lot better. And then the eye placement, you really can, once you have it there, it's not stuck there forever. You can move it wherever. I put the actual sphere in for the eyeball like towards the end because I end up moving this around so much as I'm working. Another quick trick too, or just something to note, is that on the bottom right here of the jaw, it's not going to be perfectly flat like this. You're going to have the jawbone kind of stand out. So I like to have that added with clay buildup. I'll subtract some from the center, and then I'll add it back in right in the middle. kind of like where the jaw muscle meets, I guess. But I just think that looks nice. It helps it connect better to the base mesh. But already it's coming together pretty nicely. Pretty much just keep doing that. Don't smooth too much. Let it stay dirty, because if I smooth too much, it just all goes away. So commit to it, and eventually you'll get something that looks like this. And if you do get to this point and it's all one subdivision level, you're gonna have a really hard time posing, just letting you know. So I don't recommend doing that. The way to fix that, you'll have to have the full version of ZBrush, and you can use ZRemesher and then projecting details back on. I have a lesson for that for students. I think it's literally called ZRemesher and projection. But if you're careful and you make subdivision levels the whole time, and what I mean by that, I'll show you, then it'll be much easier to pose. All right, let me grab this. So right now, this is only 12,000 points. Click divide again. And now, the more polygons, the more details I can add. So now you'll notice this brush looks a lot more crisp. What's cool is I have subdivision levels. So I can click lower and see now it's super low res. And this is really cool because if I hold control and drag a box to mask and then control tap, I can get a really nice blend. And then I can bend it pretty smoothly. See how nice that is? Nice little curve. Now if I try to do the same thing at my highest resolution, I click like 3 times. Look at the bend is going to be, see how it's like clipping through itself? It's not very nice. There's a big line right here too. You don't want that. So that's why I'm always like harping about subdivision levels and low poly count. But if you don't work with them, that's totally fine. You can reconstruct them at the end. But there we go. So that's how I end up with this base mesh. That's part 1. For part 2, we'll go over detail, and I'll actually have speed sculpts for the rest of this to kind of see as this came to life. It's just the first step, and I made this so long ago, I did not have a speed sculpt for it. Just a little quick review of what the goal is. If you have any questions while you're making your base mesh or need any help, message me on Discord. I'll be more than happy to help you. All right, I'll see you in the next one.